You are listening to Storymakers, the podcast for women who are ready to step into their true identity, live with meaningful purpose, find belonging and connection, grow in leadership, and walk boldly in faith. Here you can uncover the story that you were created to live because you were made for such a time as this. Today, we're talking with Christina. She is an actress, she's an acting teacher, a director, a producer, pretty much all around pretty amazing woman. She spent the last 8 years making a documentary following 4 different anti-trafficking groups as they were rescuing and rehabilitating and preventing and prosecuting human sex trafficking. So I want to introduce you to her because she's a powerful woman who's taken the flow of her life, the story that's been written. She's doing something to intentionally create a new story. I want you to hear how she has taken what's happened in her childhood, her life as an adult, and the way that the Lord has directed her, the direction of her faith and also her skill sets. And she's brought them together to do something that is really powerful. So I want you to hear in her voice and her story how she's taken what she had in life and she's chosen to pursue God and bring the kingdom of heaven to earth by walking this narrative out with him. She has chosen to be a woman who operates in power and intention. So I hope you enjoy this. There's also a website for the movie that she did, the new Abolitionists doc.com. The show notes will have links to everything that you can find with her. And I'm excited for you to hear from a woman who's walking the path and willing to talk about how she got there and show you what is possible. So contextualize what's happened in her life and what she's done with it to what has happened in your life and what does God want to do with it? Whose lives are you called to impact? Not in the same way she's called to it, but you have a calling on your life as well. So welcome, Christina Zorich, and I hope you enjoy. So Christina, you are an actress, an acting teacher, a director, and a producer. You've got a lot going on. You live in LA.
True.
And I would love to hear about your life growing up in entertainment. And I think we could talk about California all day long because I love California, but that would be off topic. So maybe another episode. So
I love
tell us about you and your life in LA and entertainment.
Well, I started off, I was born in New York City, and my parents are both actors. They were in a theater company when I was very young. They moved out to Montclair, New Jersey, out of New York City with 10 other couples and started the whole theater.
Wow.
And so my home growing up in Montclair, New Jersey was actors, writers, directors, scenic designers. Like there was a season each year, and my mother started off. They all basically did had a kind of very collective theater company, and so my mom. I think she started off relatively early being the artistic director. I started getting auditions through everyone we knew growing up. I was friends with all the kids in the company. Most of them were ex-students of hers. She taught graduate school acting at NYU as well. My dad was working a lot theatrically and in television and film. They were working actors most of my grown-up life, and my mom was Olympia Dukakis. So my dad was Louis Zorich. He played, I think the most visible role was Paul Reiser's dad on Mad About You. He was on Brooklyn Bridge, and he was in Fiddler on the Roof. He worked a lot, especially on Broadway. He did a lot of musicals. And so they were both working pretty steadily as I was growing up. And And my mom at that point wasn't famous. She got famous when I was in college. My dad was very well known and respected, but she was more focused on the company. And I started getting auditions. And at one point, I remember my mom saying to me, we can't be this for you, getting you in on auditions, as well as pursuing our own career. And also, we want you to just focus on school. She was against the child actor um, uh, idea. I got a call back for Annie at a young age, and that was the beginning of like opportunities that started for me, but she kind of kiboshed it. It took me many years to kind of let go of that because I knew very young I wanted to act. They put me They put me in a show on in their theater company, and I had like this like crazy moment where I like knew I wanted to act. So in a show in the middle of the scene. It was crazy. But yeah, so it was a really, I mean, in some ways my childhood was really idyllic. Montclair's felt like it's a beautiful town. It's a half hour out of New York City, but it's very much hometown USA. Even when I go back, I'm like, gosh, this place is so beautiful. It's a great place to grow up. We grew up with our doors open, no locks. I was obviously that was a different
Right.
time period, but I'm just saying it was, and of course there were struggles and issues, and I'm not going to glamorize but it was a different time. But in many ways, I was ridiculously blessed. And so, then I went to NYU. I went to Bill Esper's studio 2 years. I had to kind of argue with my parents. They really didn't want me to go into acting. So when I went to college, I initially got into NYU School of the Arts for photography. So I was debating my major, but I eventually landed more on acting, and then I got and went to Bill Esper's studio in New York. Then I ended up doing a lot of regional theater. And then at like kind of the age of 30, I was like, you know what? This is great. I feel like I've had a lot of experiences and grown and learned and developed as an artist, but now I got to start, I want to. So, there's all these different stages you go through as an artist. But yeah, that's basically kind of my beginnings.
And then when did you move to LA?
I moved to LA about in 2011. I had a teaching opportunity. I had transitioned at some point from acting to teaching, and my both my parents had taught, but I also just, partially because I didn't have the most formal training. So teaching was an interesting transition for me because there were holes in my training. I kind of learned acting a lot through doing it. And so there was this fascination for me to kind of develop, I different aspects of craft, because there tends to be like with acting technique, people tend to click and camp out in one technique, like, oh, Strasberg's the answer, or, improv is the answer. So I kind of had to, as I learned to teach acting, I learned all these different techniques. So there was fascination and curiosity for me to grow and really understanding my craft. So I got a teaching job out in LA with a friend of mine who had a studio, came out here and taught. I got a new manager, and yeah, that's what made me make the transition. Yeah.
And they say teaching is the highest form of learning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure that you learned so much
Yeah.
via doing the research that you needed to do to be a teacher, but then as you're teaching it, you're absorbing everything at a
Yeah.
deeper level. So yourself probably. So it sounds like you grew up with, you were surrounded by people who had great vision,
Yeah.
right? And you also had a lot of examples of how people were going about doing this thing that you ended up, a road you ended up wanting to go down. So you had examples and models for your own life and probably some that you learned from, and some that you said, I'm going to learn not to do that. You probably have people who say, oh, I want to do it that way and I don't want to do it that way, which having somebody who's gone ahead of you that you get to see and extract what you want to take and keep from it is really valuable. But then also, it sounds like your parents, you said they started the company, right?
My
That's
mom
a lot of
started,
vision.
yeah, she started 3 theater companies back
Wow.
when she was young before she, hit it and got like more famous. She has some fun stories that I thought are really interesting. She like these companies started, and at first she would talk about being ethnic, and at that time it was like the people who worked in New York were blonde, blue-eyed, or passing. Like that was the aesthetic at that time. People who looked different ethnicities just didn't work as much. And when I was young growing up and I would listen to her and my dad talk about it and how it was more difficult, I was like, even my mom's name called her out for not being, so I thought that sounds a little bit, is that really true? And then I started going on auditions, and I went for an audition off Broadway, and I got to the callback. I didn't book it, but the playwright, who was well known and had around at that time when my mom was just in New York, he's like, your mom was so great when she came in and auditioned for me, but back then we only hired young, blonde, blue-eyed girls for the lead ingenues and the leading women. And so I sat there, I went, oh, so she called it out. That's what was happening. So the aesthetic changed, but that was an interesting thing that I discovered that she came up against when she was young and first hit New York. But then even before she got Moonstruck, she was in a play, but there was a play that got her Moonstruck called, I can't remember the name of it. It was a Christopher, it was at the Public. I'll just leave it at that. Of course, it's going to come to me later, but she basically wasn't working as much as she wanted in film and TV, but she was getting more theater. So she decided to go and meet with all these casting agents that she knew liked her and have individual meetings with them and just say, can you just tell me why I'm not booking at this other level? And so they basically, the consensus she got was that she intimidated people and that they didn't know her personally. Like they didn't feel comfortable with her. And so then she changed. She went into rooms and would say, look, nobody wants to hang out with somebody who's not, they're not comfortable hanging out with. They want to hire
Right.
people who are um who they feel that way about. So she had all these little benchmarks that, she
Mhm.
share with me, and just little life lessons about people, that were
Wow.
were fascinating too. But the thing that I always loved about my mom to this day is like she always wanted to grow. She always wanted to challenge herself. And that part of her that was like relentlessly wanting to do something new and hard that was a challenge, that part of her I really admired.
Hmm. Well, and it sounds like somebody who would intentionally grow and shift how others are experiencing her. There's a lot of humility in that
Yeah.
and teachability. Like, well, I'm happy to learn from you how you experience me and shift without being selfish and saying, well, I deserve to be the way I am and you should get over it. That sounds like a really incredible model to learn from your mom.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't like that. So it says something.
Even the
You
fact
know?
that they weren't hiring her type, so she created her own opportunities. And those years where she was like, doing these plays and learning how to do everything you need to do in a theater, because you have to help with the sets, or you have to help with the costumes, or you have to drive the actors here and there, or like it forces you to have, like what I ended up doing with my movie. You have to learn to do a little bit of everything, basically, right? Because it's
Right.
your baby, right?
Like you got to take ownership.
Yeah,
That means you're going to wear all the hats for a good long
yeah,
time.
a little bit.
So,
Well,
what's it like walking with Jesus and being a Christian in the entertainment industry? And would you say there's any difference between being a Christian in the industry in LA versus New York?
Um, it's interesting you say that. That's a very interesting question. I mean, the first question I'll say this, I literally, now that I look back when I was a young woman and I look at young women, I'm like, gosh, I remember. I mean, I know you know this, like we just women, we know this. Your 20s and your late teens, you have so many opportunities, right? And it's a lot for a young woman to process the attention that you get as a young person and just because you're at that age. And I really feel like I got saved at 30 and I my 20s were, I wasn't saved, let's just put it that way. And I got to the end of myself, in a very and it was this moment where psychologically I just knew I something had to dramatically change. And that's when I met the person who witnessed to me. He was an evangelist in a restaurant we both worked at part-time in New York City. And he was in a dressing room, basically witnessing to a bunch of busboys. And I felt the presence of uh, God in the room to the degree that I was assaulted and was staring at them. And then I was pursuing him. I felt God's presence in the room. So I knew he evangelized me, basically, brought me to a Pentecostal church in Harlem, and I got saved eventually. And yeah, and I
That's
bothered
awesome.
him and bothered him. And he used to say he didn't want to talk to me. He's like, that girl will never leave me alone. I was constantly asking him questions.
You had an evangelist questioning his calling. I don't know if I like this anymore. Look what they do when they respond
This
to
is what
me.
discipleship really is. My gosh. No, I was relentless. I was always, but yeah, he led me to the Lord and got saved in a Pentecostal church in Harlem, New York. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it was
So,
powerful. It changed my life. And
yeah,
at one point my dad actually said to me, "Don't you think you should be concerned that this is going to affect your career?" I didn't care, I had seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's different sides of the industry. Some of it is just incredibly noble and beautiful, especially with certain artists. They get to a level and they create things that are just breathtaking. Some people or different seasons in their life can be like monks in the industry because the level of artistry that's demanded of them. People on the outside don't see that, the kind of narrow vision to be in that 2% that makes a living. You have to be so focused, and so just dedicated and disciplined. It is monk like, some of them. I mean, Broadway shows the demands on your body. My gosh, these people. But there's the other side where it can get, ugly or, and I always say to myself, it's because there's people in it. People. These are people, in
right.
the industry who can, the good, you're going to see all of it, right? And I, not tremendously so, but I definitely saw these different sides by the age of 30 and was like, and I knew there were moments where I was put on the razor edge where I was like, I could do this and things might be easier for me. And I just kept getting in those situations and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I
And
couldn't do
then
it.
around that time is when you moved to LA?
No, that was later. Then I got saved. Oh, what happened? At that point, I was acting, and I started progressively doing more independent films, and I was getting bigger auditions. I got signed with William Morris. I came out to LA, had a pilot season, and basically what started to happen to me is that I had to start dealing with myself because this is something, I really feel like acting is for me, and I'm speaking from my own perspective. Other people might have had another experience, but I felt like there's a childlike thing about actors where it's constantly externally focused. There is a constant, and there's a part of it that's necessary. Like you need external feedback to understand where you need to go developmentally in the work. And that can create really unhealthy dynamics psychologically. Forget about if you're dealing with somebody who's not healthy, who's in that position with you, like a director, a teacher, whatever. So for me, I started to feel like something wasn't developed in me at like the foundation of who I was, even though I had Christ. So I was getting more and more biblically literate, and like, I was getting counseling, but so I started to get therapy. And after a while, that's really what really helped me develop. And I'm really happy right now. I'm a part of Connect Up, which is a group that does Christian counseling. And I love the work they did. I've done Sozo. I'm a big proponent of Christian counseling. I think the church needs it. I think it's healthy. I think it's good. And I used to even think as an actor, I was like, how can you play another character if you don't even know who you are? If you don't even understand why you do what you do, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
And I
Yeah.
feel like that's true with the way it being in service to others. How can we serve other people if we don't understand how to take care of ourselves? Right?
Right. Yeah. It's identity is such a root. It's
Hmm.
really a root, a foundation that is so shakable if you haven't done that work. And I can only imagine that acting challenges what you think you know about yourself. I mean, we all have the kind of the pre-informed, I think this is who I am, but there's so many layers. And without the Lord, you can only get so far in transformative work because he's the transformation. Everything else is kind of just a tool and a resource, but he is the true transformation in your identity. So did you feel that there was a shift after you became a believer
Oh yeah.
in your work? Did you say your dad said, "Hey, are you concerned that this will affect the
Yeah.
business?"
Yeah.
Do you feel that it did affect the business? Maybe not even by other people impacting you, but even probably just internally, you probably made different decisions and it did impact somehow.
Well, I started saying no. I
Mm,
started saying no. I enjoyed that word a little bit too much. Started saying, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not comfortable. But, on the flip side, um, you know, the other extreme of not having boundaries and learning how to take care of yourself, that's not healthy for anybody. So, I mean, I'm lucky I was, protected enough up until that age and didn't compromise myself too far. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just
yeah,
think that when you look at some of these people in the industry who they unravel, you know, a lot of it, if you can track it back, is some form of self, not taking care of themselves or not
right.
understanding what they're messing with or being able to see it clearly.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I was always this is the thing that I realized, and it's taken me a long time to figure this out. I really believe we're all engineered with who we are, right? We're born. And a pastor I was doing a practicum with recently for my ministry was like, you were given the gift of faith. That's your thing. And I said, wow, the Holy Spirit had told me that, and no one had ever confirmed that. But I had felt that as a young kid, I was a Pollyanna. Like my mom would be going through something. I'd be like, we can get through this. It's going to be okay. Or I would have an opportunity as actor. And my dad, well, be careful with that. I would get like, no, it can work out. I was like one of those, let's put on a show in the barn, kind of Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney kind of kids. Like,
Fun.
like I was very much like that always. And so that worked for me and against me,
Right.
but it
Sure.
worked for me with this because I was like, why can't it? Who said it can't?
Yeah.
Who
Which
said that?
really it's helpful when you believe the Bible and you're like, wait a minute, but the Bible says so. So I'm just going to go with it. It says all things are possible
Yes,
with
right.
Christ. So
And that's one of my favorite verses. That's my
yeah,
I
mine
did
too.
a show. I did a show, Laura, and I repeated that. That was my daily bread for that show. I swear to you, I lived on that that verse. That verse was like, I felt like it kept me alive, that verse. I can
Yeah.
do all, and you know how certain verses do that for you in your
Yeah,
life?
definitely. I'm very, all things are possible and everything's figure outable. So
Yeah.
we just probably need each other to to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that I
So,
learned teaching acting. That I learned, you know, and that was
mhm,
interesting because I would learn when I coached or when I taught, any scene or character could be figured out. And I figured out by teaching that the reason it hadn't been in the past is the person either didn't want to put in the extra time or the person receiving it didn't want to do the work necessary to do it. It's the resistances in ourselves that stop it, right?
right. Yeah. Well, that leads me to the next thought of you've been working for 8 years to make a documentary that probably required you pushing through a lot of resistance personally, outwardly, all kinds of things, because you followed 4 different anti-trafficking groups,
In
and
South,
they were doing
yeah,
rescues, rehabilitation,
prosecution.
and doing what they could to prevent and also prosecute in the human, like, sex trafficking arena. So I'm really proud of the work that you do in that, because I'm a wholehearted believer that we all need to be involved in some level to kind of help stop the crazy.
Yeah.
But I would love to know what made you in all of this journey become so passionate about standing up for women and children, um, and also the men, because I know there's men involved that they take men as well and boys. It's like, what caused you to get passionate about raising up your voice in to bring justice and to defend? Like, what led to that?
Well, I honestly think that was like, you know, um, just a divine assignment that hit me. Like I was at a party in the Hollywood Hills in 2012. I was teaching at that acting studio, and then I met a woman who did anti-trafficking work, who had been a nurse in Northern California hospitals, and women and children had come in who had been trafficked, and there was no system set in place to rehabilitate them. And she was building homes for rescued women and children to rehabilitate them, and she was raising money, needed fundraising materials. She told me a horror story of being in the Philippines and going into an official's office, and they wrote her a some kind of document that gave them permission to go in with armed guards to an underground brothel to rescue, I believe, as many children from the ages of 10 to 12 that they could get out. And she went in with the armed guards, and she took out, she described some conditions that were horrific to me at this party. She got out 10 young girls. She said, Christina, I wanted to get out more, but they were so broken they wouldn't come. And
Mm,
then she looked at me and she said, they knew. And I couldn't get it. I couldn't string the dots together. My brain couldn't compute what she was saying. And she basically is saying, you know, if this official could write this document and could send me in with the armed guards, they could close this thing down.
yeah. Wow.
And I spent, I felt like time slowed down. I had two nieces that were young at that time. I was godsmacked. And, you know, as I described to you, which is interesting because the movie balanced me. I was such a Pollyanna, so always looking, having to look at so much. I don't, people said to me, how did you do that looking at the footage? I think it was very hard, but it kind of recalibrated me to have to confront that there is evil in the world that is, um, let's just fill in the blank. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah.
so that really that set me on the journey. I sold some property. I was going to produce a play that would have really helped my career as an actress. But I had a Christian friend, and we went in hard for each other, praying for each other. And she's like, "I'm just getting from the Holy Spirit. You're supposed to do something with trafficking." And I said, "Oh, well, you know, I did." She knew I was blown away. And there's a bigger story around. I went to the woman who started and I said, how can I help you? I offered cinematographers I knew and directors that could help get fundraising materials. They all wanted to get paid. She told me, Christina, all the money has to go to the kids and the women. And that's when I got the idea for a doc. So,
Mhm.
but I didn't have the money then. So later, cut to when I had the money, my friend reminded me of it. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. But I fought it. And I said, okay, I'll make a short. She's like, no, you're supposed to make a feature. I said, I have never done it before. What are you talking about? And, I was recently telling a friend at
But
my
Lord, I'm too
about it.
young. But Lord, I'm too old. But Lord, I don't talk well. But Lord, I
I was telling this guy at my ministry school recently, and he goes, so you made the movie because of one prophetic word? I said, yes, I did.
but you had an encounter with the Lord around it. It wasn't just
Um,
somebody came and told you, hey, go do this thing. You obviously had to. I mean, I see from all the things that you're saying, there's so many things that collected
yeah,
that are kind of like that golden thread through the storyline, even just from having parents who said, we have vision, so we're going to start this. We've never started this. We've never done this before. We're going to go ahead and do it. Like stepping into taking some risk and saying, well, maybe we could do it at this level. Maybe you could do a short. Maybe you could do something else. Well, what else? And then having people who are supporting you and encouraging you and calling you higher and reminding you, no, God said, and no, you can do this. All things are possible, Christina. Go ahead.
but I
I
mean,
mean,
Laura, that is
wow.
the reality. Like, as you're talking, I'm like, that really is the reality. Like,
Yeah.
do we walk in that as Christians? That the idea that it can't be done is all the enemy. Like, do we really all walk in that reality? Like,
No.
bam, drop the mic. Like,
Let's go do
seriously.
it.
No, I'm not saying,
what should you be doing? What do you want to do that you should go do? Let's go start that today.
but you know
What else is there?
what I really, really believed? I think I felt like if I were to do this, which I started to do progressively, like I went to a conference and they'd interview a bunch of children that had been trafficked, and the interviews just devastated me and rocked me. And then I found out about a trip going to Southeast Asia where it was with anti-traffickers. So it was just this little like God breadcrumbed me there, right?
Well,
But
it took you 8 years, right?
8 years soup to nuts.
Mm-hmm.
2015 to 20. I mean, really, it was released. Yeah, 8 years soup to nuts. Yeah, yeah.
That says
Festivals,
to
everything in
me
it.
that
Yeah.
you had an encounter and a vision from the Lord that He sowed into you, that you were willing to walk that out. Because a lot of people say, I can't wait that long. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. I want a microwave dream. I want my calling to be zapped and done. I want to have all the fruit already. Or I'm too old. I don't know how long it'll take, or I'm so young. I want it now. I don't want to wait till
But
later.
Laura, that you just tipped into something that actually is very true about my personality. Right before I did the documentary, I have to say it. I'm sorry. I have to say it this way. I can't get around it. Two men in my life told me there's no way I could do this. An ex-boyfriend who told me I'm not a director. And then another documentarian told me, you can't do this. People should not talk to people. Like
Don't tell
some
me I
people, when
can't.
they hear that,
Are you trying to make me do this? Good job.
you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get a sense of what I'm saying here? And I had wanted to direct a while ago. I just didn't have the money to go back to school. So all of these little parts of myself that had not been realized yet. And as I was talking to you about acting was that child. Well, guess what? When you're teaching, when you're directing, you're producing, those are grown-up roles. Those are not the kid roles. That's the grown-up in the room, right? So it was helpful for me to find those parts of myself to develop fully. I needed those parts of myself.
Yeah.
That was I think that's part of why people do certain things because they need those parts of themselves to develop. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, the different roles, responsibilities, seasons of our lives, all they develop different parts and pieces of us and aspects. And I think we are all created in the image of God. But as we grow, we start developing other area, like other aspects of his character and nature that we weren't able to reveal to
Yes.
the world 10
Yes.
years ago, 30 years ago. But because of the situation we've been in, the responsibility we've had, the ownership we needed to take, the season we've been through, we start being able to start looking more like our dad in ways we never were before. Like as we grow in it, that
Yep.
restorative process of the soul with Jesus. And I think I'm assuming that as you've gone through all of this, it's required a
Ridiculous. I
lot.
had to fight through so much fear. I had to fight through so much
Yeah.
fear, Laura. Like I
Yeah.
remember even the first time, the first trip, it felt like I literally was punching through a wall of fear.
Yeah.
I remember that moment sitting on my couch, like, but something there's a pastor at the ministry I'm at right now. And I respect her. She talks about evangelizing. She goes, if resistance and fear comes up, take that as a word of knowledge from the devil because he doesn't want you to cross that spiritual line. And I thought that was kind of brilliant, right? So the idea that resistance, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't use comment. There's some things we're not supposed to, it's a warning. The fears can be a healthy emotion, but when and this is the thing, I knew it was my assignment, and that was an earned
Yeah.
feeling. It wasn't. I didn't have a walking through the field like Noah, build me an ark kind of moment. But I definitely had progressively through my time alone in the secret place, through confirmations, just through, I think the big thing I kept saying is, does the world need another whatever? Like when you have to produce something on your own dime, because I self produced it, you better make sure that it says the thing that you really want to say and you really want to do with your life and time, and I that once I figured out that that would be that thing that mattered, really that much to me. Um,
Right.
and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. Like the way as an
Hmm.
acting teacher, I finally wanted to figure out my own craft. I felt that way about there's got to be a structure to this. We got to
Yeah.
figure out the components of it, how to attack it. There's got to be a structure to it, right? Because there's structure to things, right?
Yeah. So would you say that in the process of that, the deciding to do it or maybe making the commitment to start it, the taking action, the follow through, or the finishing it? Which one of those was like the hardest for you? For your personality, like some people are, I can make a quick decision, but I don't have any follow through. Some people say, I can take a lot of action, but I never finish. For you, which of those are easiest and which one's hardest?
I'm going to get emotional. It's tolerating my own process. That because I remember one week I had to stop editing. I got I saw something in the footage I didn't see before, and it devastated me. I had to stop. So, and then there are other times where I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to reach out to people and really humble myself. And some of them were not very nice to me during that season when I was needy. But I needed to apprentice under them to learn. And I had to kind of take my welts, you know what I mean? And just go, okay, Christina, you're not being treated well. So what? What's more important? And then there were times where I had to ask for money from my parents at the end. We ran out of money. I ran out of my own money halfway through the edit, and I was working 2 or 3 jobs. I was Airbnb, I was lifting, I was cater waitering again, and my body wasn't a 20-year-old, and it was not easy. But and I went back to my mom and I said, I need, can you guys help and come on as a producer? I had vowed I would never do that again. So it was a lot of experiences that I had to just go. I I did extra work on General Hospital. Like I did things I vowed I would never do. But I was like, I don't care, you know? Like I have to, this is more important.
Yeah.
So
So it sounds like you had a really strong level of commitment, but I love what you said is the hardest part was the tolerating your own process. Like, okay, it's going to take this long because I need to stop editing right now because I have, you know, reached my capacity at this point. I need to maybe step back for a second, or I've got to do things I said I would never do. And that process that you were able to keep following through and taking action because you had a strong commitment because you believed so much in it that you're like, I'm willing to do things I would never do, and I'm willing to take as long as it takes, which is, those are really powerful. I was like, my next question was like, what would have been the biggest obstacles? And it sounds like you just named some of them.
myself, myself, right? Because we hit
Yeah.
walls in ourselves. Like, you know, um and we have to tear down ideas of what we think things are. Like I had
Right.
this fantasy of what the whole experience was going to look like creatively, like the team I was going to build. Well, that didn't end up happening. I had people that would come on during different seasons, and some of those relationships are lifelong, some of them are not. They were for a season, reason, and a lifetime. I had to go, okay, it's not this happy family that you know, stayed together from soup to nuts. It changed, it altered, and you know, so I had to
Mm,
tolerate that. That's more close to the reality of what most people go through. You know?
right. Well, I always talk about the difference between expectation and expectancy. It's like that expectation usually sets you up for some kind of disappointment.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
I have an expectation it should look like A, B, C, X, Y, Z. And
Right.
it's really hard to make that happen. But life is generally more nuanced and a little bit more watercolor, and you can't control where all the water or the color goes. But when you operate from expectancy that God is good, that he works all things together for good for those who love
Yes.
him. Like
Yes.
when you have
Yes.
expectancy that there's goodness coming your way, that there is a plan, that his thoughts are towards you, that he who is with you in you is greater than he who is in the world. Like
Yes.
your expectancy is in that, then you can let go of some of those expectations that it should be a formula that you created that should satisfy you completely. And it's just easier to live from expectancy.
Well, you know
Expectation
what?
is so hard to live in the
But you
middle.
know
Like
what,
I do
Laura?
it, but it's very hard.
It's the Our Father. It is the Our Father. How many Christians really your will, not mine? Like that,
Yeah.
that is a real, I think that Our Father changed as I've aged. Now,
Mm,
Our Father is very different. My day following the Our Father is very different than what I thought
yeah.
it was when I first got saved, right?
Right. Yeah. Wow. So good. Those um obstacles, would you say, how do you feel like you overcame them? Or what would you have said to Christina, you know, 10 years ago that would have helped you overcome what you were going to face as you undertook this calling to do something that was big and scary and you had to face a lot of fear, but it's so valuable. You believed in it, you followed through, you finished well. What would you have said to Christina 10 years ago?
Well, I mean, I'm going to get emotional. The best thing my mom said to me, um, you know, she was bedridden the last year of her life. Mainly, we tried hard, fighted valiantly to get her moving and eating, right? When people age, it's moving and eating. Keep them moving, keep them eating, move them because, you know, they stop wanting to move and stop wanting to eat towards the end. So their
Yeah.
aids are always, but she had just seen one of the last cuts and she looked at me out of her bag, you know, now I might get emotional. And she said, keep going, keep going. And
Mm,
remember that was, it's the simple stuff that I think I would have said, you know, the thing we look, perfect example, you know, I just turned 60. When you're 20 years old and you're in your prime and I mean, I didn't think I was the internal landscape of how women predominantly, but people in general, we don't see who we really are. We don't see who we're really capable of. So my big thing would be to tell myself all that negative mishigosh, it's all a lie. It's just a lie. What do you want to do?
Negative mishigosh?
I mean, really, it's all
What is
just
that?
lie.
Mishigosh? I might use that word.
Mishigash,
Mishigosh?
it's a Jewish term for like, I'm not Jewish, but it's a good term. I think it's like, it's crazy thinking. It's crazy
Crazy
thought, right?
thinking. Oh, I'm so gonna look it up and find out how to spell it so I can use it
Mishigash.
again.
I mean,
I love that. Yes. That I love what you said, the internal landscape. So basically you're saying I would have spoken to younger me and said to your internal landscape, get rid of all the mishigosh because it's ridiculous, crazy. It's a
it's
lie.
all, it's a, like, think about the things, I don't know about you, Laura, but the things I thought and felt about like the negative stuff, the lies, the distortions, of course it was set up, the enemy tries to set us all up with stuff to stop us, to keep us out of our calling. So, I mean, and I had a really nice grace period. I was very fortunate, but still, we all have those things that we fight against in ourselves. And as we get older, you're like, daggone, I was like at my prime and I thought there was a problem there. You know what I mean?
Right. Definitely.
I mean, what I could have done
Yeah.
if I knew, you know, the truth about where I was in my life, if I really
Right.
knew that at a young age,
Yeah.
what could we have done, Laura? Like, how could we have, I feel like I could have done more.
Right. The kingdom
Maybe
impact, the influence, the all of the things. And so
all of it.
what would you say to women listening who want to find out how to cultivate their own story and find their passion and raise their voice to create that kingdom impact and influence the world in the way that they can do it, the way they're called to do it, not the way I do it or you do it or your mom did it or anybody else like the Joyce Myers and Christine Caines of the world, like not the way anybody else is doing it, just the way she's called to do it. What would you say to her about what would you say, Mishigosh? What would
I,
you say?
I would say to go on a journey for your purpose. That's a worthy, that's not self-absorbed, that's deep fulfillment of identity, right? That's the deeper work of identity. Like I spent a year between the word and between starting the actual shooting, of really investigating and pressing in. And I read the Bible cover to cover. And, the person who prophesied over me said, I feel like the Lord is trying to, help you with identity issues. I'm like, really? I didn't know that. But if that's really what I'm saying right now, isn't it? It's finding purpose. It's finding identity. Some people who weren't born a Pollyanna maybe couldn't handle 8 years of staring at some of this stuff, right? God created me for that to become a balance, right? Somebody else, that would be, no, I can't. I need something else, right? I'm
Yeah.
thinking of someone right now. Her purpose in the entertainment industry is to create content that creates positive identity. And she
Mhm.
likes lighter material. I don't poo-poo that. That's something she needs to balance. You know what I mean? Like that's something
Yeah.
deep in her. And
Yeah.
why do we have to make each other be the same?
That would
Why
be fun. If there were a bunch of me's in the world, we would just
I'm
break it all up. We
why can't we
wouldn't get
tolerate
anywhere.
it? I know, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like it's okay to like go on that journey, right?
Totally.
However long it takes you to go on that journey, go on it,
Sound good.
right?
Well, that's so good. Oh, I hope they're listening. I hope they
I
listen
mean,
to you. Go on that
I
journey. Get
look at
going.
what you and Sean did. Like you hit your pay dirt. Like when we would work on a scene, rehearsing a scene, when I've done a few shows, there would be these moments when we would change the blocking, change this, all kinds of changes. But then when we would hit what I would call pay dirt, you feel it. You feel
Right.
it in your gut. You go,
Yeah.
that's the structure. That's what it needs with these people for this production. That's the structure of the scene.
Right.
And you knew when you hit it. You
Yeah.
feel it. So it's the same, right? As I used to
Yeah.
say, when I went shopping for a mattress, the mattress salesman said to me, "The feel is the deal." And that's it. Like, if when you hit hater, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes with the it's like there's an alignment when you're walking in your identity, purpose, your calling, there's an alignment in the spirit that I think of
God's
it
going to
like,
back you up. He's
right.
back you up.
And
That's
there
what I
is
knew. Yeah.
encounter in that. Like that
Yeah.
is an encounter with God when you get in alignment with him,
Look
when
at
that
you.
our Father changes to
Yeah.
your will be done.
I
So
mean, I know you guys go through it. You go into a place, you have to know God is going to back you up because you're taking right action, you're in your purpose, and you believe you've seen the soup to nuts of transitioning out of the trauma into realigning people back to their purpose, back to their
yeah,
place of health, right? You're taking them out of it, right? And you know that that's possible and repeatable, and it's God's will.
yeah,
It,
yeah.
it aligns
So
with divine structure. So it has
right.
to, you're on the right side of history, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you're the couple in the movie who everyone's rooting for getting together at the end, right? Because when you're
Well, it
in
works
that
out.
narrative, you're like, yeah, I'm in that narrative. I'm in it.
Yeah. I told somebody yesterday, I was like, if you can't tell, this guy kind of has a crush on me. I think it was our staff meeting. The way he kept talking, I was like, I don't know, that's this guy. Oof. And I have to give him my number later. So we're the couple that ends up getting together in the end, I guess.
Well, you know what I mean. It's the narrative where it's
Yes,
like you can feel when you're in that narrative through line.
you
You can
can.
feel when you're doing something and you got God's wind at your back. When you
Oh,
know what I mean? And he
yep.
would, you know what I would pray? This has always been a prayer of mine. Tip your hat, God. Just let me know I'm a little off or I'm a little on. Just
Right.
enough information so that I get enough of a God wink. So I'm like,
Hmm.
okay,
I like that.
I'm not off.
And God wink. I like it. I'll take the God wink, please. So tell us the website so we can go check out the documentaries and everybody can support and go after that.
So the movie's called The New Abolitionists. Where's our website is www.thenewAbolitionists, plural with an S, doc.com. There's a where to watch, page. And we got distribution. We're on Amazon. We're on Apple TV. Yeah, so you can rent or buy. And if you like the movie, please rate us and give us a good review. Yeah, I mean, my hope and my prayer is that, like, you also see information on the website, like what can I do? We have a page where you can all the anti-trafficking groups that we met along the road are listed on that page, and you can research them and kind of get an understanding of some of our resources that we found that we can stand by, that we believe in these groups and these organizations. And yeah, watch the
It's
movie. And
awesome.
I feel like there's always something somewhere we can do if we know what it is yet or not. Just keep pressing in. People start businesses that they end up using the money towards, organizations. They go on mission trips. They get involved in local politics and that they feel really understand the issue. They create products that have a purpose driven profit towards the industry, the anti-trafficking industry. I mean, you come alongside of a kid and sponsor them who's been rescued. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to get involved. Or you can do what I did, come up with some kind of creative way that you haven't seen out there that pushes the needle forward in fighting anti-trafficking, you know.
Yeah. Well, so proud of the work that you've done. And thank you for coming on and sharing with us about the work. And that gives the listeners a way to find out more? Because a lot of people still are not aware of what's happening in trafficking. And I love to raise the awareness of it, but also I appreciate that you are sharing your story of how you've gone through your life in that progression, in tolerating the process and looking for the God wink that leads you. So how you've overcome the obstacles personally to push through the fear and the resistance to do something really great, to bring kingdom impact, that there's, heaven is coming to earth when we partner with the Lord in this. And so I love how you've done that. And I so appreciate you coming on to share with everybody
Well,
else, to bring inspiration, and encouragement that it's really possible.
well, thank you for having me, Laura.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll talk to you next time. Maybe there was another episode in you.
Okay. Great.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the show so you don't miss any new episodes. And to learn more about me, my work, and how we can connect, visit sterlingandstonementoring.com or check the show notes. And until next time, remember, all things are possible and figure outable.